Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto had Yin-Yang release? Part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends. And also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. Izumi Uchiha walked down the dusty street leading to the Hokage's office. She and her older brother Baisho had been summoned by Lord Third first thing this morning. The Uchiha siblings didn't believe this to be mission related, but they weren't sure. All around Izumi were the signs that the civilians were just starting to prepare for the day. Shops were opening and breakfast stands had been serving food for the last hour. She would have liked to stop and get something to eat, but duty always came first. The young girl noticed several kids from her academy class and waved. They would smile back until their eyes met her brother's. Izumo sighed sadly at this because she wanted Baisho to let her have friends that had other last names besides Uchiha. Their mother died soon after having her, and their father had been executed when Izumi was 5, so her then 12-year-old brother became her primary caretaker. The slightly annoyed girl gave her brother a pouting look. At 15, her brother was a typical Uchiha, very stocky and antisocial. He has been a jounin of the Leaf Village ever since the age of 13. He was very thin with the charcoal black eyes of the clan and a short but wild hairstyle of pure white locks. He was wearing his uniform with black pants and chunin vest. The Leaf Village forehead protector was on his left arm and armored forearm guards were on his wrists. They arrived at the building and walked up to the guards. Her brother spoke for them both in his usual monotone voice. Uchiha Baisho and Uchiha Izumi are here to see Lord Hokage. He is expecting us. The blonde-haired Hyuga on the right looked them both over before allowing the siblings to pass. Izumi smiled politely at him, even though her brother gave no real acknowledgement. They made their way to the secretary's office, where they noticed a small redeeded boy with whisker marks on his cheek sitting by her desk. The small boy was wearing a white shirt with a spiral on the front and black shorts. The 4-year-old was sitting quietly hunched over and was trying not to be noticed. Izumi felt bad for the little guy. He was Naruto Uzumaki, son of Kushina Uzumaki, and 4 years ago the 4th Hokage used him to stop the rampage of the nine-tailed fox, a giant fox that tried to destroy the village. Unfortunately, the Hokage couldn't kill it, so he sealed the monster into Naruto, dying in the process. Many people saw the boy as the demon despite the fact he had never committed a violent act during his entire life. As a result of the constant negative attitude towards him, Naruto had developed into an incredibly quiet and shy child. The secretary glanced up at both visitors. Lord Hokage explained to you both the moment you arrived. He has important matters to discuss. Baisho walked to the office door and knocked. He then opened the door after hearing enter and walked inside with Izumi following him. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third fire shadow of Hidden Leaf, sat behind his desk deep in thought. He was about to do something that could very well blow up in his face. After a new technique was developed by the medical staff at the hospital, several orphan children had been tested by chakra to see if they had any family within the village. So far not many had been shown to have any close relatives, but Naruto had. How the old man wished he could restore that bastard Uchiha to life, just so he could execute him again, just more slowly, for what he did to Kushina. The wise old man watched as the 2 young Uchiha he had been waiting for walked into his office. One, at least on paper, was a promising jounin, and his sister was top kunoichi of her academy class. The main problem with the Uchiha was their loyalty, except for 2, which was in question at the moment. The attack of the Nine Tails 4 years ago had made many people who knew the full truth about the Uchiha's visual powers wonder if the clan had been behind it. The attack resulted in the death of Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, who the Uchiha hated because, they believed, he stole the Hokage set from Fugaku Uchiha, their current clan leader. The elders and Danzo were not convinced that Hiruzen was making the right choice, despite the benefits to Naruto. Danzo had even claimed this could very well be the third's greatest failure, but the old man was determined to see this through for Naruto's sake. Minato had loved Kushina with all his heart despite politics forcing him to take another as his wife and had made Hiruzen swear to do all in his power to see the boy had a happy life. After the events of that dark day 4 years ago, many had speculated that the 4th was Naruto's father. However, a simple blood seal provided by Jiraiya had disproved that theory. The Hokage sighed to himself as the two Uchiha sat down in front of his desk, mentally preparing himself for the unpleasant talk he would soon be having. Izumi combed her long brown hair behind her shoulders and gave him a cute smile. It broke the old man's heart that this little girl's family could very well lead her straight to her own grave. If what Hitachi Uchiha and Shisui Uchiha reported was true, then the Uchiha had begun to seriously plot to overthrow the Leaf Village and seize control by force. There was still time to stop it, and Hiruzen hoped that this act today could help lead to peace and prevent war. "Thank you both for coming," Sarutobi said as he pulled two files from his desk drawer. He passed each visitor one and sat back. "Before you are case files regarding a jounin that died 4 years ago. She was a powerful kunoichi and Fuinjutsu mistress that died during childbirth the day Kyuubi attacked. When Kushina Uzumaki turned up pregnant, an investigation was launched to uncover the name of the father. She admitted that it was possible that she had drunk too much one night and blacked out. We never uncovered the man, and no one ever stepped forward." Izumi sat confused by the conversation as she wasn't entirely sure where the Hokage was headed. Baisho, however, knew exactly what Hiruzen was going to say and began to get angry, not that his stone face showed any signs of anger though. There were things he never told his sister regarding why their father had been executed, and this old fool was about to explain it better than he had ever done. "After the hospital invented a new technique to find family relations through chakra, I ordered the technique to be used on Naruto." The old man lit his pipe and took a pill. "As you well both see, this closed the case on the father of Naruto Uzumaki." Taking the unspoken order, both siblings opened their copies in front of them. They read the investigation report from over 4 years ago and the recent conclusion to the case. Baisho knew it was coming, but still felt a spark of rage when he read his own father's name in the indicating margin. "No way, Naruto Uzumaki is our little brother." "Are you sure, sir?" Izumi was shocked. Hiruzen Sarutobi studied the girl closely. She was staring at the paper in complete shock, but also wonder and excitement. He was expecting many reactions to this revelation, but not happiness. It did make him feel better about his decision seeing the girl was excited about getting a little brother, but anyone who knew their father's backstory and the reason for his execution would be able to connect the dots. He looked to Baisho for answers and received them in his angry eyes. His sister didn't know the reason for their father's execution. "This is big, this is huge. I mean, Naruto is our half-brother. Maybe Dad and Kushina met up one night and one thing led to another. Dad probably didn't want to admit to having an affair with someone so much younger than him." "Izumi?" Hiruzen interrupted. "In the back of the report you will find an official medical valuation. That Lady Uzumaki was never shown. We decided to keep it from her as it would only have upset Lady Kushina, and she had enough emotional problems with being a single mother. That, and she was also a Jinchuriki," Sarutobi thought to himself. Curiously, the young girl flipped to the back of the report while Baisho closed his and set it down on the desk. He didn't need to read what he already knew. Sarutobi watched sadly as the girl's curiosity turned to shock rather than horror as the truth was made clear to her. There were signs that someone used a memory-altering Jinjutsu on Lady Kushina. Dad erased her mind afterwards. "Why?" Izumi asked the Hokage, even though she knew the answer. She just wanted someone to tell her she guessed wrong. "Do you know why your father was executed by Izumi?" Sarutobi asked. "He was found guilty of sexual assault on a chunin. Kurenai Yuhi came to me and explained how she had been walking home after drinks with friends when her father Ikari Uchiha placed her under a paralysis Jinjutsu. He then took her back to her place where he proceeded the assault. Afterwards, he tried to erase her mind, but he was never able to advance his Sharingan to its most powerful state. The best he ever achieved was one Tamo in each eye. Kurenai is a highly skilled Jinjutsu user and was able to fool your father into believing he worked. So, the village sentenced him to death?" Izumi asked, still in shock. "No, we gave him a choice. He could live his life in prison after his eyes were removed, or he could die with his eyes. He chose to keep his eyes." Sarutobi watched the girl closely, trying to gauge her thoughts. She was saddened by the truth apparently, but was she sadder for her father or his victims? She hid her emotions behind a mask of stone, regaining her composure. "This is horrible, but it is not the main concern. What do we do about Naruto, Lord Hokage?" Hiruzen took another long pull on his pipe, taking note of the 9-year-old's Uchiha game face. "I leave that decision to you and your brother." You can do nothing, simply walk away, and Naruto never needs to know anything. You can also accept him and take your little brother home to live with you as a family. However, if you do this there will be stipulations. Izumi turned to stare impassively at her brother and see how he would answer, but Baisho wasn't fooled by the blank emotionless face at all. His sister wanted to take Naruto home today and would throw a fit if they left without him. The older boy stared at the Hokage, cursing him silently. On one hand, the small child was the village's weapon, a Jinchuriki, and on the other hand he was hated by most of the village. If the Uchiha took guardianship over the weapon then it could put them in a negative light. The clan could also try to forcibly make Baisho and Izumi give up custody after they had already accepted it, which would place the siblings in a very negative light with the Hokage and anyone else who would be sympathetic to Naruto. The older boy would have liked to discuss this with the clan first, but he could tell Hiruzen wanted an answer now. To buy time to think, he asked, "What is the stipulation, sir?" Naruto is heir to the Uzumaki clan and, as such, shall remain Uzumaki. The Uchiha cannot attempt to gain insider ownership of Uzumaki-based techniques or abilities through Naruto. I will still act as Naruto's regent until he comes of age and will make decisions for the Uzumaki clan's best interest. Once Baisho felt irritated, control over the Uzumaki fortune would have done wonders for the Uchiha and helped them to accept custody of Naruto. Something the Hokage said was also mainly directed at him, as the old fool didn't know Izumi was aware of the 9 tails sealed within Naruto. With Hiruzen in control of all matters pertaining to Naruto's well-being, the Uchiha clan couldn't train him to control the fox's chakra, not without the Hokage's permission. They couldn't even tell him about it. Realizing there was only one thing to do, especially with his sister sitting right next to him, which was probably why the Hokage invited her to attend in the first place, Baisho said. "We will adopt Naruto, sir." For the first time since the meeting started, Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled. He reached into one of his desk drawers and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. One would give him control over the Uzumaki clan, and the other would make Baisho Naruto's legal guardian. After the Jounin signed both sheets, the Hokage pressed a button on his desk and spoke to his secretary. "Please send in Naruto." Izumi turned towards the door when she heard it open. Standing in the threshold was the little Redeed she saw earlier, nervously tapping his fingers together. Since he wasn't quietly staring at the floor, Izumi could see his chocolate-colored eyes. The young girl wanted to hug him, but knew he would probably be scared if she did. Naruto closed the door and made his way to the Hokage's desk, where he stood off to the side away from everyone. Baisho was also studying with his little brother. He could tell by the color of his eyes he was definitely an Uzumaki. If an Uchiha had any other eye color besides black, then their chances of awakening the Sharingan were almost non-existent. As far as Baisho was concerned, Naruto would never be a ninja, not with his lack of spine or skill. The third Hokage looked at the small boy kindly. "Naruto, I would like you to meet Baisho and Izumi Uchiha. You and they share the same father, Ikari Uchiha. They are your siblings, and from today onward you shall live with them." Naruto just looked at the Hokage slack-jawed. The one thing he had always wanted was family, and now his surrogate grandfather just told him he had one. Jinchuriki looked at both siblings, taking note of his sister's long brown hair and nice smile. He glanced at his brother and saw a face of stone with judgmental eyes. The girl stood up and put her face directly in front of Naruto's, giving him a much bigger smile. "Hi." The Redeed gulped. Only Lord Hokage really ever talked to him. Most people either ignored his existence or treated him angrily. Hello." He managed to stutter out. Izumi felt sad because of his shyness, so she gave him a hug. The little boy didn't know what to do, so he awkwardly hugged her back. When they broke apart, she sat back down and placed Naruto in her lap. Sarutobi watched the scene smiling, no matter what, this had been the right decision. Baisho said nothing, nor did he make any motion to hold his brother. "If that is all, Lord Hokage, I will take my siblings and go. I need to inform the clan about this development, and I'm sure they are both hungry," Baisho said in his monotone manner. At Sarutobi's nod, all 3 siblings left, Naruto holding Izumi's hand and waving goodbye to his grandfather. The Hokage was reaching for his pipe when he heard from outside. "Well, that was unexpected. Jiraiya, why are you skulking outside my window in a private conversation?" Sarutobi asked to light up his pipe once again. He looked up to see the legendary Toad Sage step into the room. His old student was dressed in his standard garb with his white hair, as long as always. He passed Saratobi a little orange book as he picked up one of the case files that were left on the desk. The third quickly hid the book in a secret drawer, blushing slightly. "I came to check on my goddaughter and to give you important information on Orochimaru," the sage said as he studied the old picture of Kushina. "So it was that bastard Ikari that fathered Naruto. Do you think it wise to give the Uchiha control of the Nine Tails?" The third let out a cloud of smoke, looking up at Jiraiya. "I did not give the Uchiha control of Kyuubi, I gave Naruto to his only family. You have really lost it if you think the Uchiha won't use this opportunity to their advantage. If memory serves me right, Kaya Uchiha, Baisho, and Izumi's mother, was an amateur Fuinjutsu user. They probably still have her scrolls." Saratobi could only agree with Jiraiya, as the man made a good point. Though in honesty, Naruto getting his hands on a bunch of Fuinjutsu scrolls wasn't really a bad thing. Also, Naruto will have to go through the Clan Restoration Act, so having an Uchiha wife wouldn't really give the Uchiha any real control over future generations of Uzumaki. If they tried playing matchmaker, it would be wasted effort. Only time would truly tell if Saratobi has made the right choice today. Outside on the street, Baisho was saying his goodbyes to his younger siblings. "I need to go and inform the clan on what's happened." He then handed Izumi his wallet. "Take Naruto and get something to eat, but try not to be too long. I'm going to request a larger apartment since there's 3 of us and we may have to move today." "Okay, big brother, we'll be home soon," Izumi said, smiling. She looked down at Naruto when Baisho used the Shunshin jutsu to leave. She was greeted by the funny face Naruto was making at the sight of seeing the technique for the first time. She laughed a little, which gained his attention, and asked, "So, what do you want to eat, Naru-chan?" The boy blushed a little at his sister's teasing and said in a quiet voice, "Can we get ramen?" "Ramen?" Izumi asked, disappointed. She wasn't a very big fan of salty noodles, however this would be the first meal she shared with her little brother and she had asked him what he wanted. She also didn't want to disappoint the shy little cutie. "Fine, ramen it is. Do you want to go somewhere specific?" Naruto nodded his head happily and grabbed Izumi's hand. He then began pulling her towards the greatest place on earth, in his mind anyway, Ichiraku Ramen. Izumi smiled at seeing her brother come out of his shell a little. Her smile faded though, as they made their way down the street. Everywhere she looked, Izumi saw angry faces and cold eyes staring at Naruto. The boy knew of their presence as well. He stopped pulling his sister and instead walked quietly by her leg, looking down at the ground. He was still guiding her in a more subdued manner. The older girl got tired of this and began to glare back at the civilians, but it wasn't so effective coming from a 9-year-old Uchiha that had yet to awaken her Sharingan. Not much longer the brother and sister arrived at the ramen stand. An older man was busy helping other customers, so a girl around Izumi's age walked up to them. She smiled at the redeed. "Hi, Naruto-kun. Who's your new friend?" Izumi was happy to see someone being nice to her little brother. She also noticed a ramen girl studying her closely to determine what she was doing with Naruto. Deciding to put the girl with light brown hair at ease, the Uchiha explained. "Name's Izumi Uchiha. I just learned Naruto-kun here is my half-brother since we share the same father. He'll be living with me and be an older brother from now on." Aem's face broke out in a wide happy smile. This was some of the best news she had heard in a while. She loved Naruto like a little brother ever since Lord Hokage brought him here a year ago and had wished her own father could adopt him. He had apparently tried, but because of clan politics the civilian council denied the application. Apparently, they couldn't turn down a blood connection. Tucci approached, hearing Izumi's statement. "Well, isn't that something? So, who's the lucky guy that caught Kushina's heart?" Izumi cringed before saying. "Uchiha Ikari." The old ramen chef froze at the name, giving Izumi a hard look the young girl knew wasn't really directed at her. Not even 30 minutes ago the man's face would have confused her, but now she knew the truth. She took a sad look at her little brother, who was smiling shyly at his friend Aem, and wondered what she would say to him when he inevitably asked about their father. How did you tell someone so innocent and sweet that their father was a monster and you were living proof of his crimes? Tucci looked at Aem and said, "Can you see me? Takiji? He wants a large miso ramen with 3 orders of pork." Aem left reluctantly. Mr. Takiji was a mean fat man that had once made a rude comment about rats and vermin being allowed in a restaurant when he came in and saw Naruto eating at the counter. Luckily, Naruto didn't know the man was talking about him and ignored the comment. Tucci heard and told the man if he didn't like the way he ran his business then he could go somewhere else. The fat man sat down as he liked ramen as much as Naruto himself and nothing more had been said, but Am still remembered that day and had not forgiven the bastard. She fixed his ramen with the older pork and noodles from the night before and added a large helping of spit when no one was looking. She walked up to a fat civilian and said, smiling, "Here you go Mr. Takiji, enjoy." Meanwhile, Tucci had brought Izumi and Naruto a shrimp and miso ramen. He was distracting the little Uzumaki from inquiring about his father by telling him a funny story about a 9-year-old Kushina eating herself sick the first time she visited the stand. Apparently, she challenged one of the Akamichi clan to an eating contest. She managed to win, but when she jumped up to crow about her victory, she made herself sick and threw up. The Hokage made her spend the night at the hospital for observation and to take some horrible tasting medicine to fix her stomach. Naruto was smiling and laughing quietly, while Izumi was silently thanking the older man for the distraction. Am returned when all the customers were taken care of to talk more with Izumi. Her father had approached her in the back and explained not to ask questions about Uchiha Ikari and that he would explain why later. After all, it was only a matter of time before the whole village found out. While Izumi was talking with Am, Naruto ordered a beef ramen and a pork ramen. When Izumi finished talking with Am, she turned to check on her little brother and froze. She had never seen a stack of bowls that high before. She had figured on this being a relatively inexpensive meal since ramen didn't cost much. She also didn't figure a small boy could eat that much, but Naruto had actually eaten more already than the 2 Akamichi students in her class, and he was reaching for the menu again. Baisho was going to kill her. "Naruto, we need to get going soon. Big brother will want us home." "Haha," Izumi said while scratching the back of her head and laughing nervously. Naruto looked at the menu disappointedly. He sighed sadly and reached for his wallet that the Hokage gave him. Izumi reached out and placed a hand on his shoulder, stopping him. "What are you doing, Naruto?" "Baisho gave me money to buy breakfast, so you don't need to pay." "Oh, that's okay. I ate more than you, so I don't mind paying," Naruto explained quietly, blushing. Izumi could help but agreed with him, glancing at the stack of bowls. "It's fine, Naruto, you probably won't get the stipend from the village anymore since you're living with us now. So, you should save your money." Naruto placed his wallet back in his pocket and Izumi counted out the money from Baisho's. Am was giving her a real smile as she took the money from the Uchiha. Izumi was a little annoyed when she realized that this was probably a common occurrence and the ramen girl had distracted her on purpose. She picked her brother up and gave him a fast sprint piggyback ride all the way home. She was glad to hear him give out a loud laugh finally. Meanwhile, Baisho was leaving an emergency meeting that had been held at Fugaku Uchiha's house. After explaining the circumstances behind Naruto's conception, the clan leader had immediately sent for every senior Uchiha clan member to explain the issue and discuss a possible course of action. Most were not pleased by what they heard. Even dismissing the fact his brother was the village's Jinchuriki, the story would remind the civilians of a great shame committed by an Uchiha. His father's trial and execution were what led to him and Izumi being ostracized from the clan and forced to live on the outskirts of the clan's compound. The Uchiha Jounin seethed with anger at the memory. He had known of his father's crimes before anyone. He knew how many young women and girls he had seduced through Jinjutsu because his father would get drunk and brag. Ikari Uchiha could never get his Sharingan to fully mature, but it was still a Sharingan and had power. The Hidden Leaf village was one of the most powerful villages in the world solely because the Uchiha called it home, even though they weren't shown the proper respect by the village. If his father took liberties of the less worthy Kunoichi who were too weak to defend themselves and who should be grateful the Uchiha clan was here in the first place, then it was their fault for being weak. As far as Baisho was concerned, they killed his father because he was proof that even a weaker than average Uchiha was still stronger than the Leaf's strongest ninja. Those damned elders and the Shinobi Council. The white-haired boy forcibly calmed himself down, thinking back to the meeting. One good thing was he and his siblings would be given a small house in the compound's main area where the head family lived. They would also be given a much larger allowance by the clan than what one would expect for a family of 3. Lady Mikoto had insisted upon it. When those present argued how unfair the stipend would be too high for a family of 3, Fugaku's wife laughed. She then explained. Baisho isn't feeding a family of 3 Uchiha, he is feeding 2 Uchiha and 1 Uzumaki. Though Baisho didn't fully get the explanation, it had made every older man and woman present shut up about the stipend. This made the boy fear for his wallet that he had left with his sister. Fugaku had then inquired about any stipulations the Hokage may have made upon Naruto's adoption. This caused some sour faces after Baisho had explained the old man would have greater control over the re-deed than the Uchiha would. The fact they couldn't train Naruto to use the fox's chakra to better help the clan's interests had made several sore. They also talked about an eye transplant, but this too was also shot down, as the Hokage would never agree to it. Once again, Lady Mikoto came to the rescue and said they should send a formal request to Sarutobi in having Naruto trained by Uchiha Oho, the clan's current Fuinjutsu expert. Lord Fugaku himself had written it up and sent it along with a chunin to be delivered immediately. One brave jounin had voiced the most troubling question. What do we do about public relations regarding the scandal this well caused? It won't take much to connect the dots after hearing Ikari is Naruto's father. The mood within the room had grown truly dark then, as the clan was reminded of its public shame. Fugaku spoke up harshly. We will not draw attention to what is obvious. When inquiries come we will tell the truth, as lying is pointless. Baisho and Izumi will refrain from making any statement to fellow Leaf citizens and shinobi, they are to simply say it is private. If any damage control is needed, Mikoto and I will handle it. Baisho remembered the look on Mikoto's face at the question. The look of pure rage on her pretty face had confused him for a second until he remembered overhearing once that she and Kushina had been close friends. It was even possible that their friendship had led to the assault. It is possible that Uzumaki had first caught his father's eyes when she had visited Mikoto. They could have even been drinking the night it happened. Baisho didn't care one way or another. Naruto was proof his mother had been weak and nothing more. Coming up to his apartment front door, he saw both Hitachi and Shisui waiting for him. Can I help you? He asked both visitors to study. Hitachi looked up at the older boy and said, my mother asked us to help you move. Shisui gave no response. Baisho led both boys inside looking around for his younger siblings. Neither were present at the moment. He turned to his guests. Izumi took Naruto to get something to eat. We'll wait for them, if neither of you mind. Shisui leans against a wall by the door, studying Baisho. He knew without a doubt that this man was a traitor to Konoha. This fool placed the blame for his father's death purely on the village and not on Ikari himself. He was probably the only Uchiha that thought that way, since many had wanted to kill the bastard themselves. Unfortunately, only half wanted to kill him because of what he did to fellow Leaf Kunoichi. The rest wanted to kill him, primarily because he was caught and embarrassed by the clan. How do you plan on teaching Naruto? Shisui asked in hopes of gaining insight he could later give Lord Hokage. Hiruzen had been reluctant to kill of the more powerful Uchiha with suicide missions, despite Danzo, the elders, and both loyal Uchiha saying to do so. Danzo and the elders wanted the powerful threats removed, while Itachi and Shisui hoped the clan would call the rebellion off if they lost enough fighters. I'm not sure if there is anything I can really teach him. Judging by his eye color he will never awaken the Sharingan. I'll probably just let Izumi teach him until he goes to the academy. He may one day be a competent genin. The stupid fool commented offhandedly. Shisui watched Itachi's eyes narrow at Baisho's words, no doubt thinking of his own little brother Sasuke. Fugaku often favored Itachi over Sasuke, which left the younger brother attention-starved. As a result, Sasuke would often chase after his older brother because their father was rather unapproachable. Shisui knew just how much Itachi loved his younger brother, and to see Baisho talking bad about Naruto was hitting a nerve in the young protege. One of both Itachi and Shisui's worries was that the third Hokage would want to spare Baisho for Naruto's sake. If anything, the radical Uchiha's reaction regarding his little brother suggested getting him out of the picture would help Naruto's emotional development. The Jinjutsu master wouldn't underestimate the older Uchiha though. Baisho was highly skilled in elemental ninjutsu and was said to have one of the more powerful Sharingan eyes present in the clan. A discrepancy in a mission report that involved the death of a fellow Leaf ninja, one Baisho had been good friends with, made Shisui question just how powerful those eyes really were. Glancing at Itachi, Shisui was actually worried the 9-year-old boy would attack the 15-year-old when Izumi and Naruto walked in through the front door. The little boy realized there were strangers present and hid behind his sister's leg. Izumi wasn't fazed, unlike her obviously annoyed older brother, and grabbed Naruto under his armpits, holding him up like a cat. This little cutie is my little brother Naruto. Naruto, Itachi-kun, and Shisui. They were both Uchiha and friends of mine." The obviously uncomfortable boy tapped his hands in front of himself protectively. "Hello." Itachi smiled politely, trying to be nice. "Hello Naruto, we've come to help your older siblings move." Naruto looked down shyly as his sister sat him down. She then turned to ask Baisho. "We're moving already?" "Yes. The clan didn't have any large enough apartments close, so they are relocating us to a small house in the middle of the compound. We won't be far from the main family home actually." Shisui stood up and produced several scrolls from a pouch on his belt. He passed them out to everyone except Naruto and explained. "We can seal everything into these storage scrolls to make packing easier." Izumi grabbed one and walked to her room with Naruto following close behind her. The little boy stood in the threshold curiously looking around. For the most part the room was very empty, only a few plants by the window on the right side and a futon for sleeping. His sister walked to the closet on the left and began taking her clothes and neatly folding them on her futon. She looked at the small boy smiling and said, "Come here Naruto-kun, I'll show you how to use the storage scroll." The little boy happily stood by his sister as she sealed her belongings. She placed the scroll on the ground and unrolled it. She began making hand signs slowly so Naruto could follow, then slammed her hands on top of the funny drawings inside the scroll. Naruto watched fascinated as ink spread out from the paper like spiderweb until it covered his sister's stuff. Finally, everything disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto smiled at the sight. Izumi placed the scroll in her side pocket of her black pants and then placed Naruto on her hip and walked out of her old room. The little Uzumaki snuggled sleepily into the 9-year-old's side, feeling happy and safe for the first time in his almost 5 years. Neither sibling knew that a dark cloud would soon fall over the Uchiha in only 1 month's time. How Naruto would be forced to rise to the occasion to save another child and how it would change him forever. Izumi Uchiha sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling in front of her. Looking around the empty room she and her brothers had shared meals for the last month filled her with great sadness. She hated the silence that filled the house as there was nothing to distract her from worrying. She hated the fact that the Uchiha clan had been forced to move to the outskirts of the village after the Kyuubi attack because it meant she lived so far away from the hospital. She hated the fact her little brother was there right now fighting for his life and, by order of the Hokage, no Uchiha was allowed anywhere near him. However, the thing she truly hated most and wanted to destroy made her the saddest, the one who placed Naruto in danger by offering him up as a sacrificial lamb, her older brother Baisho. Hanging on the wall opposite of the young Kunoichi were 3 pictures in honor of their parents. 2 on the left were of her mom and dad encircled by a silver flowery wreath. On the right by itself was a picture of Kushina Uzumaki placed in the middle of the Uzumaki clan symbol, which was painted on the wall in green. This had been done by Izumi herself because she wanted to make Naruto feel as welcome as possible. No one had yet to tell him the circumstances of his birth. Izumi simply told him she never knew his mom and their dad knew each other. That was why no one ever suspected they could be related. Things had been going so well, and then the assassination attempt on Hitachi. Earlier that morning, an unknown man, dressed all in black, made his way silently from vantage point to vantage point, studying the compound his target lived in. His orders from his leader had been clear: eliminate Uchiha Hitachi at all costs. The village command had heard from spies within Konoha of an Uchiha protege unlike any that had seen Madara himself. No one in command back home wanted to see this 9-year-old boy, already a genin, make it to adulthood. The ninja was calm as he watched the comings and goings of those within the compound. It helped him quite a lot that the Uchiha lived on the outskirts of the village so far away from Anbu patrol routes. So far, he hadn't had any close calls, but now came the hard part. He had to slip in unnoticed, kill his already skilled target, and leave without anyone knowing he had been there. If caught dead, there was no way his village could take responsibility for this action without starting a war. The man saw an opening to finally get inside. A civilian man wearing the Uchiha crest on his shirt came walking by under the tree he sat quietly in. The assassin dropped down, as silent as wind, and knocked the slightly overweight man out with a chop to the neck. He dragged him off the road and into the trees, where he began his special infiltration. Using a basic Jinchuriki, in which the irony was not lost on him, he learned the man's name and a few other key facts. All anyone saw was Jin Uchiha walking home after a long day of work. The assassin had a basic grasp of where his target would be and how to kill him. The plan was simple, if cold, and cowardly. He would use a poison that was spread on touch, that attacked the heart. All he needed to do was find Uchiha Sasuke and let him carry the deadly payload to his older brother. The poison in question was a recent invention that his village had developed only 2 months ago. The reason it was being used was because no one had seen it before and it couldn't be traced back to his homeland. There was a common antidote to the poison, but by the time the leaf administered it, Hitachi's heart would be so ate up there would be no way to save him. Another good thing about the poison was it worked faster on someone who had more chakra. Hitachi would die before anyone even knew Sasuke was sick. Walking down the main road, Jin Uchiha greeted everyone he met with a smile and wave. Passing a small flower shop, an old lady offered him a free rose for his lovely daughter, but he kindly refused and walked on looking for Fugaku's youngest son. It wasn't long before he spotted his target. He looked for the largest house on the street, as that would be the home of Wicked Eye Fugaku. Walking around the home, as if heading down a side street, he saw a young boy with dark hair kicking and punching a training log. The little guy was giving it all he was worth, which was apparently a lot, and made the assassin think taking out the younger brother was just as important as killing the older brother. The assassin quickly hid in some shrubs to await his chance to infect Sasuke. There weren't many people around since most were at school, work, or missions. There were still the elderly and the stay-at-home parents to watch out for. Sensing there was no one around, he made his move. Using a basic shunshin jutsu, the assassin moved to grab the back of the kid's neck. His hand grabbed the boy just as a much slender hand grabbed his wrist. Standing next to him was an extremely angry-looking mother, Mikoto Uchiha. "My mother just visited me. She had something remarkably interesting to tell me about you, Jin. Apparently, you were acting rather peculiar this morning as you returned from your night clerk shift at the Gold Bears Inn. When she offered you a rose for your lovely daughter, you failed to remind her proudly how you only have sons. Damn," was the only thought to cross the assassin's mind as he broke the woman's hold on his wrist. He tried to horizontally kick Mikoto in the side of the head, but the Uchiha matriarch countered by grabbing the offered right leg and kicking out Jin's left knee. "Shit, good thing this isn't my real body," the assassin thought as he cancelled his infiltration. Living flesh concealment jutsu release. Little Sasuke watched horrified as the fight began. When he felt someone grab his neck, he turned to see his mom holding the wrist of a fellow Uchiha. He watched his clansman attack his mom, only to get his leg broken. The little boy thought the fight was over, but the unknown Uchiha released some technique he never heard of and vomited a whole other person from his mouth. The new man, all dressed in black, ran away with his mom right behind him. The little Uchiha watched his mommy throw a butcher's knife at the attacker's head and remembered seeing her use that same knife to cut tomatoes as he walked out the back door. Mikoto disappears around the house, still chasing the assailant. Sasuke looked down to check on the fallen Uchiha and saw that he was very still and pale. His eyes were wide open, but he didn't appear to see anything. Sasuke fell to him, but when he realized the man was dead, his eyes began to water as his grandmother swooped down and picked him up. "My little ninja, are you okay? Did that man hurt you?" she asked frantically. Mikoto's mother then looked down and saw the dead body of Jin. She fell over backwards, dead before hitting the ground, still holding her grandson in her arms. A few hours later, Uchiha Oho sat silently watching young Naruto practice his kanji. The objective was to write it as fast and correctly as possible while trying to not make mistakes. So far, his handwriting was above average for a boy of 4, but his speed was still quite slow. The old Uchiha didn't mind this, as he was a rather patient man. At the age of 90, Oho had no wife, children, or grandchildren to dote on. He had lost his wife 15 years ago to a heart attack. She had been a member of the Hyuga branch family. Their marriage had been approved by each clan's elders on the stipulation that their kids would belong to the family their dojutsu belonged with. The stipulation was a moot point, though they tried, no baby ever graced their home. As they both got older, they began to see the children of both clans as grandchildren and turned their affections towards them. There had been many sad-eyed Hyuga and Uchiha children at Kage's funeral. After the Hokage approved of the Fuinjutsu training for Naruto, Fugaku, and Baisho had approached Oho personally. He was secretly delighted because Fuinjutsu was a dying art and rarely found in clans anymore. Usually if a clan needed Fuinjutsu work done, they contracted out to businesses that specialized in the art. This however led to the creation of generic wards and barriers that could eventually be bypassed. It was decided Naruto would do light conditioning training in the morning with his sister before she headed off to the academy. Izumi would then drop Naruto off on her way to school, and the boy would do various chakra control exercises and Fuinjutsu practice during his time with Oho. After the academy, Izumi would pick her brother up and take him home for further conditioning and taijutsu training. The old man had enjoyed the young boy's company over the last few weeks. He was very shy at first, but opened up some after he realized Oho was a nice man. He was still afraid to ask questions when he didn't know something, probably afraid of getting yelled at, but he was getting better. The old Uchiha had shown him some basic seals and formulas. The elderly man even allowed the boy to run his chakra through a few of them to get a good feel for their individual abilities. Naruto's chakra's strong response to the seals had been an exceptionally good sign, and the little Redeet had gotten a kick out of watching the paint bomb seals exploding. Naruto was switching his scroll over to the other side to continue writing when an urgent knock was heard coming from the front door. The little Redeet looked at his sensei to see his eyes glowing red with his fully powered Sharingan. "Who is it?" he called. "Master Oho, it's me Baisho. I have come for Naruto on an urgent matter," came the reply from the front door. Both teacher and student recognized the voice immediately. Oho quickly answered the door, even at his advanced age he got around well. Standing in front of the threshold was Naruto's older brother dressed in his jounin attire. There was an attempted assassination by an unknown ninja. From apparent evidence we believe the target was a member of the head family, though we aren't sure who. It is possible someone tried to kill Lord Fugaku, but Hitachi is also a possibility. An emergency meeting has been called at Naka Shrine. "You said you were here for Naruto, for what reason?" Oho asked suspiciously. He had an uneasy feeling. Baisho took a moment to answer, which didn't go unnoticed by his elder. "I am taking him to the hospital. Sasuke was used by the enemy in hopes of carrying poison to the rest of his family. I'm not sure of the specifics, but the Uchiha med ninja say Naruto's blood can cure the poison because of special properties." Special properties? Probably the 9 tails or the fact he is an Uzumaki. Oho theorized before saying. "Very well, I'll head for the shrine." Baisho picked Naruto up piggyback style and sunshine away. Oho watched them leave, tracking the elder brother effortlessly with his Sharingan, having an uneasy feeling. He shook it off forcibly, thinking, he's Naruto's older brother, there's no way he would put him in deliberate danger. He would later come to regret letting Baisho take Naruto away. Uchiha Clan Hospital. Mikoto Uchiha sat by her youngest baby's bedside holding his hand. Every labored breath he took was like a kunai knife straight to the heart. Her own mother was gone, but she couldn't grieve as her son needed her strength. Standing at the foot of the bed was her husband, looking stern and strong, refusing to show emotion. "Lord Fugaku?" The Uchiha Kanta, the senior med ninja, politely inquired, holding the door open. Clearly, he wanted to talk in the hallway so as not to disturb the grieving mother. Fugaku gave his wife an unreadable look before following themed ninja out. After the door closed, the Uchiha clan head demanded, "What is it? Have you found a way to save my son?" Kanda sighed before saying sadly, "We neutralized the poison quickly, sir, but it managed to do a lot of damage before we could. From what we understand about the poison, it reacts faster to those with larger chakra reserves than others. The enemy probably expected Sasuke to infect several people before falling ill himself. What they didn't consider was the amount of chakra your youngest possesses, nor the Sharingan abilities that allowed Lady Mikoto to see the poison after it reacted to contact with chakra inside Sasuke and her late mother." Fugaku stared at the closed door of his son's hospital room before looking back at the medic. "If the poison is neutralized, then why can't you use medical ninjutsu to repair Sasuke's body? Almost all the damage to Sasuke was in the heart. The heart is heavily integrated into the chakra network. The process in which we would use medical techniques requires us to push a patient's chakra out of the area we are healing and then use chakra to rep the damage. That is why medical ninjutsu requires such precise chakra control. If you are not careful, then, when you push out the patient's chakra, it can cause more damage. No med ninja here on staff, nor in any medical facility in the Land of Fire, possesses the degree of chakra control to safely heal Sasuke's heart because of the level of damage done." Maybe Lady Tsunade Senju could, but if any of us try Sasuke we'll die almost immediately after chakra enters his heart. After listening to the doctor's explanation, Fugaku cursed the fates. The one time I actually want a damn Senju around, and you can't find one. Then an idea occurred to the clan head. What about a heart transplant? The doctor had a hesitant look on his face. There are complications with that option, sir. We don't have a heart available that would match well with your son. There is also no way of knowing if any other facility around would have one either unless we inquired and explained why we needed one. Since we need one for Sasuke, we couldn't lie and say it was another Uchiha, because then whatever heart we were given wouldn't match. Fugaku was by no means a stupid man and could understand what the medic was saying. He didn't want to alert the village because of an available option that most wouldn't agree with. There's a heart available here that is still in use. It's a little more complicated than that, sir. The medic said nervously. How could it be more complicated? Fugaku asked. Looking up when he heard the front door to the building open, he saw Uzumaki Naruto and his older brother walk through the door. After seeing the young Redeed, it finally dawned on Fugaku exactly what the real complication was. Are you insane? He quietly asked the doctor. We take Uzumaki-san's heart and swap it out with your son's. Sasuke will get a healthy heart, and Uzumaki-san's special chakra will repair the heart we give him. Kanda explained. What are the Jinchuriki's chances of surviving the operation? Fugaku asked, already knowing the answer. Low, sir, very small chance of survival. The Uchiha medic answered honestly. Fugaku stood in silence contemplating the negative fallout this would cause with the village. They could always say the boy died as a result of a training accident if the worst happened. Looking at the door to his son's room, he made his choice. Get Uzumaki-san prepared for surgery. Do not tell my wife anything. Inform her we have a heart transplant for Sasuke, nothing more. Do you understand me? Kanda nodded and signaled a nurse to prepare Naruto. He then went to explain things to Mikoto exactly as Fugaku said. After having a meeting with his remaining staff, it was decided that the surgeries would happen simultaneously as it was the only way this could possibly work. Naruto sat in a large room on a hospital table in nothing but his shorts. His older brother was leaning against a far wall with his eyes closed. A slightly plump nurse had shown them to the room and instructed both to wait for the doctor. Kanda walked in looking at a clipboard. He saw Baisho leaning on the wall. Is everything ready? The white-haired boy nodded his head. Yes, my little brother has volunteered to give blood for Sasuke. The medic looked between both brothers and realized Baisho hadn't told Naruto the truth. Realizing it was for the best, he decided to keep up the lie. Thank you, Naruto, for your help. I'm afraid it's a little more serious than a blood transfusion. Sasuke will require a bone marrow transfusion instead. Naruto was a little confused and asked meekly. What's bone marrow? The medic explained. It is the substance inside bones that make blood. If we give some of yours to Sasuke, it will make him better. However, this is a painful procedure, so we're going to put you to sleep for it. Naruto looked to Baisho for guidance. His brother gave him a reassuring smile and said, Don't worry Naruto, I'll be here the whole time. Izumi knocked on the door of Oho's house. She waited a few seconds but received no response, so she knocked again. After a moment she opened the door and walked in calling for Naruto. She found a note on a small table just inside the door, addressed to her. Picking it up she read. Izumi, there was an assassination attempt today and Sasuke Uchiha was injured. Both your brothers have gone to the Uchiha clan hospital as Naruto's blood could prove useful in saving Sasuke. I was called to an emergency meeting at Naka Shrine. After reading the quickly written note, Izumi tore off towards the Uchiha hospital. It made sense in a way to use Naruto's blood. His Jinchuriki healing abilities combined with his Uzumaki healing abilities could be passed, temporarily, by blood transfer, or so she heard. Still, Izumi had an uneasy feeling in her gut. Bursting into the Uchiha hospital, the first person she saw was her older brother. How are Naruto and Sasuke? Did the blood transfusion help? Baisho looked at his baby sister and said, Naruto and Sasuke-sama are both in recovery. Sasuke is in room 1 and Naruto is in room 2. Without waiting for any further explanation, Izumi quickly made her way to room 2 wondering why Naruto needed a bed. Upon entering she saw her baby brother's chest draped in bandages. He looked extremely pale and weak. She was shocked to see Naruto in such a state. Turning to look at Baisho, who followed her in, Izumi asked. What's going on? I was informed that this was a blood transfusion. Baisho's face was a mask of hard chiseled stone, as he explained. Sasuke-sama's heart was heavily damaged by an enemy poison. To save him, we exchanged Naruto's heart for his. Sasuke-sama is doing very well and should recover quickly, and, as suspected, Naruto's abilities are repairing the heart he now has. It took a moment of stunned disbelief for Izumi to process everything her beloved older brother had just told her. Looking back down at the very pale and shaking child, she asked, "Did Naruto agree to do this? Did he fully understand everything that was going on?" Without remorse, the older boy told the truth. "No, he thought it was going to be a bone marrow transplant." "You bastard." The shocked girl screamed. Baisho gave his sister a stern look. "You need to understand something, Izumi. Naruto is not an Uchiha, and if his death means Sasuke-sama lives, then so be it. The only true accomplishment he will ever truly have is saving Sasuke-san, and you know I'm right, you're just too stubborn to admit it. Right now, there are those jealous of the Uchiha's power and control of the village, and they do everything in their power to subjugate us. They are trying to choke us out with unfair prejudice and lies. The truth is everyone fears this village because we call it home. Their strength is greater than every other clan's combined. If they fall in battle so we can continue on, then the village is stronger for it." Izumi couldn't believe the words she was hearing. She couldn't believe her kind older brother really thought this way. "Where is the doctor? Someone should be here with Naruto." Baisho shrugged his shoulders. Most were too exhausted after the dual surgeries and needed rest. The ones still standing are tending to Sasuke-sama. Though Baisho didn't say anything, the truth was still in his manner of uncaring. No one believed Naruto would survive and had placed him off to the side to die quietly. If he died, then they would make it look like an accident. "I need air," Izumi said, running out of the room. Upon exiting the hospital, the young Uchiha vomited all over the grass. She stood, hyperventilating, and came to a decision. Izumi ran as fast as she could for Hokage's tower. Izumi's house. Izumi poured her cold tea down the sink. Frustrated tears fell down her cheeks as she remembered her older brother's words. If he truly placed the Uchiha on such a high pedestal, then what did that mean regarding their father's victims? Did he believe their father should have been pardoned because he was an Uchiha, or that Kurenai Yuhi should have just accepted what happened and moved on? The truth was she no longer knew what her brother was thinking anymore. Izumi threw her glass against the wall, shattering it with a yell of frustration. She then collapsed back in her chair and laid her head on the table sobbing. She heard the front door open and close with a loud slam. Looking up, the 9-year-old girl watched her brother storm in. Gone was the shinobi emotionless mask, and instead was a face full of rage. "Do you know what you did? The Uchiha clan is being audited. We also can't take part in any missions except for the running of the police force until after an official investigation. That doesn't matter for me though, because my shinobi license has been permanently suspended." Izumi glared at Baisho. "After what you did to our brother, they should have killed you." Baisho was taken back by the venom in his sister's voice. She had never once spoken to him with such hate. He made a move, as if to slap her, when he heard another cold voice speak. That would be a bad idea. Both Uchiha turned to look at the wall with the family photos to see an Anbu shinobi leaning against it. Baisho tensed, as he hadn't felt the man's presence at all, but there was no mistaking who he was. Hata Kakashi. The spiky-haired ninja pulled off his dog-themed mask to reveal not much more of his face. The only area you could see was around his right eye, his ninja headband covered his left eye, and a half-mask covered his nose and mouth. His hair was as white as Baisho's. "Lord Hokage sent me to inform both of you that Naruto is no longer in danger of dying. His body repaired the heart well enough for the medical staff to take over. He is still in a coma, but should wake in a few days. Izumi may visit him whenever she likes, but no one else will be allowed in his room." Both Uchiha's reactions were different upon hearing the news. Baisho couldn't care less, and Izumi started crying again with a smile on her face. "What about the Uchiha clan's audit?" Baisho asked quickly. Kakashi's one visible eye narrowed as a powerful pressure was felt in the air. "Lord Hokage will send Marino Ibiki tomorrow to begin." As Kakashi began to walk towards the front door, he paused and addressed the siblings in a lazy manner, starting over his right shoulder. "One more thing, killing Baisho might upset Naruto. After surviving such an ordeal, as he did, telling him you were executed might accidentally unleash the Kyuubi." Kakashi stood there for a few more seconds letting his words sink in. Seeing the eyes of the older Uchiha narrow, the Anbu knew he got the message. The older ninja left, and Baisho turned to address his sister, only to find she was gone too. Izumi was already fast on her way to visit Naruto, screw visiting hours. Naruto awoke in an area he had never been before. The sky was full of golden clouds that appeared to have twinkling stars set inside them, and the floor was clear clean water that reflected the sky perfectly. The shy boy had never seen anything so beautiful before. Looking? No, you are not standing on water. The water is holding you up. A reply came from behind the boy. Naruto quickly turned around to see a man sitting cross-legged in mid-air, or at least the little Uzumaki thought he was a man. He had a long thin white beard and spiky white hair. There appeared to be 2 horns on his forehead. The old man was dressed in an all-white robe with 6 red tomo along the front of the collar. It was when the man opened his eyes and looked at him that Naruto received a shock. The old man's eyes were purple and appeared to have a ripple pattern that started at the center and disappeared at the edges. "Who are you?" Naruto stuttered in a scared voice. The man gave him a kind smile and said, "I am Satsuki Hagoromo, though you may have heard of me by my title, the Sage of 6 Paths." Naruto tapped his fingers in front of himself shyly. The name didn't ring a bell, and he didn't want to insult the grown-up. Usually when grown-ups got mad, they would hit him. Naruto noticed the old sage frown. "I will not hurt or yell at you, Uzumaki Naruto. You are only 4, so it is no wonder you never heard of me before. Most people think of me to be only a myth anyways. Can you read my mind?" Naruto asked in wonder. Hagoromo laughed. "No, reading your body language, as well as what I already know about you from observations, I can make an educated guess." Naruto wasn't really sure what the old man meant, but he was smiling, so that was a good sign. Naruto didn't know why, but he was becoming less nervous and somehow knew this was a good man. Then something the sage said clicked in the boy's head. "Your observations? You've been watching me?" The sage noticed the stutter this time was more from anger than nervousness. "You and others. I died over 1,000 years ago, and from time to time, will look in on my descendants." Naruto calmed down hearing they were family. He became nervous once again though, and asked scared, "If you're dead then am I dead?" "No." Hagoromo was quick to reassure the small child. "You came close to dying, but you will live." Naruto was confused. "How did I almost die? Did they take too much blood?" A look of anger crossed the face of Hagoromo, but was gone before Naruto could truly register it. "They didn't take your blood. They exchanged their hearts with Sasuke's. Your natural healing abilities fixed a damaged heart, but you should never have been placed in such jeopardy just to save another boy. It wasn't your responsibility, and they didn't even have the courtesy to ask for permission." Baisho probably didn't know what was really happening. Naruto said looking down at his chest. He pulled his shirt out a little to see if there was a scar. "There are no signs of injury, as you have fully recovered." The sage said seeing Naruto curiously check himself. "As for your loving older brother, he knew exactly what was going to happen when he came and collected you from Uchiha Oho." Naruto looked shocked. How could Baisho do that to him? He began to shake as tears gathered in his eyes. The old man quickly gathered him up in his arms and sat Naruto down in his lap. The red head broke down and cried into the sage's robes wondering why his older brother would betray him. Hagoromo didn't mind the wet tears though, he just patted Naruto's back to comfort him. Finally, the child stopped crying and just sat sniffling in the sage's lap. "I'm sorry Naruto, but there is something you need to know, and there is limited time to talk. One day soon you will have to make a difficult choice, and you need to be prepared," Hagoromo said, staring out into the golden horizon. "What do you mean, sir?" Naruto sniffed, wiping his nose on his sleeve since he didn't have a tissue. The otherworldly being seemed to conjure one from the air and handed it to the child. "The Uchiha are in danger of being completely destroyed. They feel unfairly treated by the village, and they're not entirely wrong in some ways. These ill feelings are causing some to think of possible treason against Konoha. The Hokage is aware of their actions and is trying to prevent fighting from breaking out, but there are those in power that have found ways to undermine Hiruzen Sarutobi's efforts," the sage explained sadly. "I don't understand, the Uchiha are the police. That's an important role in the village," Naruto said quietly. The Hokage himself explained that to him. Hagoromo took a deep breath and began. "The problem goes back to Naruto. Before the ninja villages, there were only ninja clans. After a period of almost endless war, the Senju, and Uchiha formed an alliance to create the first ninja village Konoha. Soon other clans joined the village, and the Land of Fire prospered. However, when the time came to select the first Hokage, the Uchiha wanted their leader Madara selected, as that was one thing promised to them for helping create the village. However, the other clans wanted the Senju leader Hashirama chosen. Fearing the village would break apart, both the Uchiha and Senju agreed to Hashirama becoming the first Hokage. However, Madara was not in agreement with this choice and soon left the village. The powerful Madara managed to use Jinchuriki to take control of the nine-tailed fox and return to Konoha to forcibly take the Hokage seat. After an unimaginable battle between Madara and Hashirama, the first Hokage was victorious and the Kyuubi was sealed into his wife Uzumaki Mito. Seeing Naruto was about to interrupt him, the sage said. "Yes, Naruto, she was a member of your clan." After the battle, the other clans became weary of the Uchiha. There was still bad blood between some of the clans because of the warring clans period, and the Uchiha had been most vicious in their victories. Though Hashirama tried to help, he was also trying to make peace with the other ninja villages that had sprung up in response to Konoha. Hashirama died from illness, and his brother, Tobirama, became the second Hokage. It was he who made the Uchiha police force. Tobirama didn't trust the Uchiha and lacked his brother's heart. He wanted the Uchiha sequestered and out of the way of village politics. By making them the police, he accomplished this, while making it seem he was giving them a true purpose. Over the years, the Leaf Village Council would downplay the Uchiha's accomplishments. They didn't want them gaining popularity with the civilians. The Uchiha were also accused of involvement in the second Kyuubi attack 4 years ago. The last thing anyone, even your current kind-hearted Hokage, wants is for an Uchiha to become the village leader. Though it pains me to admit this, the village council is not wrong in their thinking, just their actions. The Uchiha are too stubborn and proud. They believe the village exists to serve their ambitions. If they were to be given leadership over the village, then they would try and take all the power for themselves. Under their rule, the people would ultimately suffer, while the Uchiha thrived. Even if a kind-hearted Uchiha took the seat, the clan would still be in his or her ear telling them what to do. With the Uchiha's current attitude, there is no possible way for an Uchiha Hokage at this time. Naruto sat quietly thinking about what Hagoromo told him. He didn't fully understand everything, but he got the basics. The Uchiha wanted to take old man Hokage's place, and they were willing to hurt people to get it. What can I do to stop this? I don't want to see anyone get hurt. The sage smiled sadly down at his descendant. No matter how strong the words of the heart are, one must be willing to listen for them to have an effect. You, Naruto, have a powerful gift to reach the hearts of those around you and change them for the better. Unfortunately, there are those within the Uchiha clan that will never hear your words. If forced into a corner, the Hokage will choose the village over one clan. If that happens, it could mean the deaths of all Uchiha. Naruto's new heart stopped for a second. What the old man was really telling him was that his siblings were in danger of being executed by the Hokage himself. I'll go back, and make those who will listen understand that treason is bad. The sage just smiled down sadly at the little boy. What will you do about the ones that won't listen? What will you do when they talk to the ones that will listen and change their minds back to treason? What do you do then, Naruto? Naruto's eyes began to tear up again as he thought about how hopeless it seemed. I just found my brother and sister, the Hokage wouldn't take them away. Would he? It wasn't fair. Anyone who knew Izumi knew she would never betray the village, and Baisho would never do anything to jeopardize Izumi. Would he? How can I save them? Naruto sniffled. I'm only me. I'm not talented or strong like my brother and sister. Sniff. Hagoromo laughed lightly at the little boy's question and hugged him tightly. You are far stronger than you think, Naruto. I had 2 sons in my life, and because of events that took place that I won't get into right now, they both chose to reincarnate down their respective bloodlines after dying. Indra was my oldest, and Ashura was my youngest. You, my boy, are of Ashura's line, and the incarnate of my youngest for your generation. Naruto was so shocked he stopped crying. What does that mean? As a result of what has recently happened, you will receive my very own chakra. This will give you the ability to use the Yin-Yang release. What that means is for you to find out. The first Hokage was the incarnate of Ashura before you, and he had such a close resemblance to my chakra, he gained the strongest wood release ever seen. The little Uzumaki sat in the sage's lap processing this new information. The fact he could have the same power as the first was incredible. He had heard stories about the man that built the village from Ohojiji since he had been alive to meet him. Then something began to bother him. If I'm the incarnate of Ashura, then who is the incarnate of Indra? Hagoromo rubbed Naruto's red hair. That I won't tell you, but I'll tell you who the last one was. Uchiha Madara, the man who fought Hashirama for the Hokage hat. The sage watched proudly as the quiet Redeed figured out the hidden clue. If Madara was the incarnate, then it stands to reason the Uchiha were the descendants of Indra. That means his new incarnation was also an Uchiha. Will I gain the wood release, Mr. Sage? Naruto asked curiously. It was too hard for the 4-year-old to pronounce Satsuki. Ignoring the way Naruto addressed him, Hagoromo explained. You, Naruto, are the first ever incarnate from the Uzumaki clan. The wood release is an exceedingly rare Kekkei Genkai of the Senju clan that only a few receive. Hashirama was by far the most powerful user sense of Ashura himself, though every Senju incarnate gained the Kekkei Genkai. You, Naruto, have little Senju in your pedigree. Most of your blood is Uchiha, with Uzumaki coming in at a close second and Senju at the bottom. Something the sage said didn't really make sense to Naruto. Izumi told me the Uzumaki are cousins of the Senju and that the Hyuga are cousins of the Uchiha. She also said that it is believed by the Uchiha that the Byakugan is an offshoot of the Sharingan. She also told me the Uzumaki have such powerful chakra because of the Senju clan. If that's true, then why does my small amount of Senju blood mean anything? Shouldn't the Uzumaki and Senju blood be the same? The old sage scoffed at Naruto's question. Sorry, Naruto, but that is completely wrong. My brother Hamurl Satsuki is the father of the Hyuga clan, as well as a few others like the Kagaya. My sons only fathered the Uchiha and Senju. One of Ashura's granddaughters married a man that had unusual properties associated with his life force. When combined with Ashura's line, this created a special chakra that granted increased healing abilities and excessive longevity. This was the birth of the Uzumaki clan. Hagoromo let the information sink in a little before continuing. There is one more thing we must discuss, Naruto, the reason why you are hated? Naruto gave the sage all his attention. This was the question he had asked the old Hokage many times, but received no answer for. As I mentioned earlier, Mito Uzumaki had sealed the Kyuubi inside herself to stop it attacking alongside Madara. Towards the end of her life, she realized she had to seal the fox into a new host. Your mother, Kushina, was chosen for this burden because, even amongst the Uzumaki clan, her chakra was special. The day you were born, someone, possibly an Uchiha, freed Kyuubi from your mother in her weakened state and used him to attack the village. The 4th Hokage needed another Uzumaki to seal the fox inside and choose you, since there were no other available candidates. Naruto looked down at his stomach, shocked. The 9-tailed fox was said to be bigger than any building in Konoha. How does something so big fit in my tummy? The sage let out a deep bellowing laugh. Simple, the 4th Hokage sealed him inside you using Fuinjutsu. After calming down, Hagoromo gave Naruto a sad look. You need to know something else about Naruto. I battled a beast known as the 10 Tails. I stopped it by sealing it inside myself, becoming the first Jinchuriki, the name for people like you with Biju sealed inside themselves. At the end of my life, I used my abilities to separate the monster into the 9-tailed beasts of today. The fox inside you is my son Kurama, and at one time was a guardian of man. Over the years, people would persecute the Biju unfairly, causing them to become hateful of humanity. Their treatment in the past is similar to the way your village treats you. So, when you first meet him, keep that in mind. Sensing his time with his ancestor was coming to an end, Naruto held his robes tighter. Please, sir, tell me how to save my brother and sister. I can't be Naruto. The sage said sadly. This is something you must discover for yourself. It is unfortunate, but remember this, no matter how powerful you become, no matter how great a hero you are, you can't save everyone. Naruto was about to try pleading again, but found himself looking up at a white ceiling he didn't recognize. Looking around the room from his bed, he saw various machines and a window that showed the night sky. Looking down at himself, he saw he was only wearing his shorts. A large paper sheet was attached to his chest, and paper bandages were wrapped around both his arms. He saw various seals drawn on the paper sheet and wraps, but he didn't know what they meant. Suddenly, something happened that Naruto couldn't explain. He could feel his chakra flowing through the seals. He had felt his chakra before when Oho showed him seals at his house, but not like this. As the energy flowed from the seals and back into his body, his mind began to flood with information. It was like his chakra was literally teaching him everything about the Fuinjutsu currently on his body. Then he felt something that scared him. His stomach began to feel warm as his chakra began analyzing the formula on his abdomen. The one he now knew held the fox prisoner. If this accidentally broke the seal, then the beast would get out. He tried to control his power and make it stop, but it wouldn't respond. His mind began to gain even more information as his chakra finally stopped. Now knew there were two seal formulas at work and a master tag embedded in both. Naruto suddenly went back to the day he first learned about master tags. It was the third day he had worked with Oho-sensei. It was like he was there reliving the moment. It was a perfect memory recall in high definition. Now Naruto, I want you to have a look at this and tell me what it is. Oho had asked the young boy, handing him a large sheet of paper with a formula drawn on it. Naruto had examined the paper excitedly since he loved learning about seals. It was the jutsu of the Uzumaki clan, and Naruto wanted to be the best Uzumaki seal master ever. The drawing looked like a throwing star outline full of various kanji and squiggly marks. Naruto gave Oho a confused look. It looks like a shuriken. Oho rubbed Naruto's head affectionately and explained. That is the formula that represents my chakra. It is called a master tag, and it is needed to use some of the most powerful ninjutsu techniques known throughout the world. Learn this, and the only thing that will limit your Fuinjutsu will be lack of knowledge and imagination. Increase your knowledge and better your mind and imagination, then there is theoretically nothing you can do. The old Uchiha then reached into the pocket of his robes and pulled out a triple-bladed kunai. He handed the handle first to Naruto and said, what you hold there is one of the kunai that the fourth Hokage used to end the third great ninja war. His teleportation, the flying thunder god, requires a master's tag to connect with the user and allow instantaneous travel. Naruto studied the kanji on the handle intently. He looked up excitedly at his sensei and asked, can you use? No Naruto, I can't. Oho interrupted the boy. Naruto gave the old man a disappointed look. The technique requires more knowledge than I possess to perform. I only know the basics of it. I'm just using it as an example. Unfortunately, you are years away from possibly discovering your master tag, as each one is different from each individual to the next. Naruto snapped back to the present with his mind buzzing. All the information he had gathered today, combined with whatever his chakra was doing, had revealed to him his master tag. He also knew the fourth master tag was a 5-point shuriken, as that was in both of the two formulas on his abdomen. He was in such an excited state of mind about knowing how to perform the flying thunder god jutsu. He never felt his chakra once again mold with the prison on his stomach, changing it for the better. It was, as Naruto examined the formulas for the fourth's legendary in his head, he realized that it would be impossible for him to use. He wanted to cry out in frustration at the revelation. No matter how hard he tried, his chakra could never be controlled enough for the pinpoint precision required to teleport with the. Even with this new power of living chakra he seemed to have gained, he just knew flying thunder god was out of his reach. He couldn't really explain how he knew this, it was just some kind of instinct, a knowing. This power, knowing, seemed to guide him to another thought. Could I use the information I now have on space-time techniques to make my own? Maybe one that requires more power to use, so chakra control isn't an issue so much. This thought kept Naruto awake the rest of the night. He was still staring at the ceiling as the sun began to shine through his room's window. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time, till then sayonara.